Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Drew. I'm an exercise physiologist, a Chinese medicine practitioner, and I've been teaching, training, practicing exercise rehabilitation, science, energetic work for 20 years now. So I kind of sit in this really interesting space of kind of Western medical science and exercise rehabilitation space, and then Chinese medicine. And I have a really interest in kind of how the energetic system, the bioenergetic system, or in Chinese medicine we call qi, how that works with the body. And particularly in the Chinese martial arts and qigong practice and in yoga, one of the things we do first is we train the physical body, because when you've got an injury or if your body doesn't work very well, it becomes a barrier to you living life well. To understand how the body works, we need to understand musculoskeletal anatomy. And to understand that really well, we need to kind of look at individual muscles and just kind of appreciate them for what they are individually, and then zoom out a little bit and how they work together with local muscles, and then zoom out further and how they work with other aspects of the body as well. Otherwise, it can get really, really overwhelming when you start to learn anatomy. And I remember when I was learning it, it was all these different terms and planes of movement you had to learn, and it was just all very confusing. So part of my mission here is I just want to help demystify a lot of the anatomy, and particularly in terms of functional movement, because this really is the foundation of a lot of different kind of health practices, whether you're a personal trainer, physio, EP, a chiropractor, osteo. Maybe you're a visual artist and you are interested in human anatomy from like a visual artist perspective, drawing the body. Uh, One of the cool things with anatomy is that it basically doesn't change too much. We're actually more similar than we are different with our kind of gross anatomy. And then today we're looking at Teres Minor and Teres Major, two of the rotator cuff muscles, and they're kind of a pair. So I thought I'd just do them together. And so we've got Teres Minor as the smaller one that sits a bit more superior, and then you've got Teres Major, which is a bigger one which sits underneath Teres Minor. It's a little bit more inferior. Now the biggest difference here, they both come off the medial edge of the shoulder blade or the scapula, but the biggest difference is Teres Major attaches onto the anterior part of the humerus, so the front of the arm, whereas Teres Minor attaches onto the posterior aspect of the arm up here on the kind of the tubercle. So what that means is one is an external rotator and one is an internal rotator, and they both have roles in functionally stabilizing the head of the humerus in the glenoid cavity, so you can use your arm well. So let's have a look at the Teres Minor first. So we go into insertion, greater tubercle of the humerus. So this aspect of the humerus here, this part of the bone is kind of lumpy. See, or it's all kind of nodulated and it's kind of lumpy, and you've got porous attachments there. So that's a good sign there's a lot of muscles attaching around through here. So it's attaching quite high up. And you remember you've got your supraspinatus attaching here. You'll have infraspinatus coming up back, attaching here. You've got the bicep tendon, long head coming up through here. So it's quite a busy area. And then also you've got this subscapularis coming from the subscapular fossa here, coming on the top there as well. So it's a fairly busy area. The distal attachment is on the scapula here. It's about in the halfway point, so that kind of middle section just through here. So maybe the middle third potentially. And you can just see, like, in terms of the muscle size, it's probably about half the size of the Teres Major, hence minor and major. Now, if we look at Teres Major on the inferior angle of the shoulder blade, bigger, thicker tendon attaching onto the bottom of the shoulder blade or the scapula, and then it's going to attach into the bicipital groove here as well. So the tendons will either just be on the edge of the groove, or they'll come in there. And the Latissimus Dorsi muscle, I'll put it in later, comes up and attaches in here as well. So often the lats and the Teres Major work together. They're kind of like a little team. Main difference is that the Teres Major only attaches on the shoulder blade, whereas the lats have all those attachments onto the spine, to the pelvis, and to the ribs. So you should check out the video I did on the Latissimus Dorsi if you want to follow that up there. But essentially, the teres major is a little helper muscle. It's an assisting muscle to the Latissimus Dorsi. Now, if we look at the nerve supply of teres minor, auxiliary nerve C5, C6. So that means the nerves coming out of this region up through here. Teres major, nerve supply is going to be C5, C6. So scapular nerve is coming out of the same region. Okay. So again, a lot of shoulder issues are kind of created in the neck, particularly the base of the neck through all your rotator cuff muscles. Mostly the brachial plexus, which supplies this region, is usually around that C5, C6, C7 kind of region through here. So base of the neck type stuff. Now let's look at motion. So we'll do teres minor first. We'll come over to motion. So here, let's fade all. So small muscle contracting, and it's going to rotate the humerus into lateral rotation. Okay. Good. So here, there's more of a neutral position. And it rotates, sorry, that's more neutral there. And then as it comes out, it externally rotates the humerus. So internal rotation, external rotation. Now, the reason I'm saying there's more neutral is typically the thumb when you're neutral will be facing out, the palm forward, thumb out, like so. So if we come back this way, that's internal rotation where the thumb is kind of the palms turned in. So one thing to note here is that we do have the infraspinatus as well. So the infraspinatus and the teres minor are like a little pair. They work together to create that lateral rotation. And just looking in the shaft of the humerus as it spins on its axis. So that's the lateral rotation component there. Now, when you compare those two muscles to the teres major and then to the lats, which are internal rotators, plus pec major, which is internal rotators, there's absolutely no way that those two muscles on their own are going to win against your lats, your chest, teres major. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So we need to make sure that all the other scapular stabilizers, your traps, your rhomboids, are all strong and functional so that they can help pull the shoulder back. Because when you adduct the shoulders back, it kind of like facilitates the external rotation. So as you pull your shoulder blades back, your arms naturally rotate and they spin into external rotation. Thank you, Drew. I need that. So make sure you do that. Let's have a look at teres major so you get a bit of a comparison. Okay. Major. So we've got a few other things here that's happening with teres major. So here we have our huge lat muscle. So let's see if we can get fade global deltoids, triceps, get rid of, keep the lats. There we go. So I've taken out everything except for the lats and the teres major here. So you can see how they're working together. So from here, you're in full shoulder flexion, and they're going to pull the shoulder back into extension and then into hyperextension. So you can kind of see it's almost like a horizontal pull by the time it gets down to there. From this position here, and then contract, pull back. So that muscle is going to help with the tricep, the posterior deltoid, and the lats to pull your arm behind you into extension. So as I said in the other video, when we're talking about the triceps particularly, to help you get into a tricep contraction, you need to adduct the shoulder blades so you get the humerus orientated in the right angle. Okay, so really, really important that you can do that. So training shoulder retraction okay, and adduction. So retraction was the shoulder blade kind of goes directly backwards, and adduction when it comes internally. So retraction and adduction together makes that kind of nice rounding movement as the shoulder blade rolls over the rib cage. So you want to train that. Now, if you also add into, let's add in that deltoid. Where is that deltoid? That's the front deltoid. Yeah. So then you've got also the deltoid here, strong muscle pulling the arm back. Now it's interesting because you look at the attachment point of the deltoid, it's kind of on the lateral side of the humerus. So when it's pulling back that way, it's also going to create an external rotation force. However, you've got the lat dorsi and the teres major creating an internal rotation force. So you have some opposing forces in the body working together. Now, if we put in the rhomboids and the huge, this is probably why the trapezius is so important, huge trapezius muscle, they are going to be adductor muscles to help you get into that external rotation. It's one of the huge problems, mistakes people make when they're doing shoulder rotator cuff rehab. They just keep doing all these little isolated rotation movements to try to get these small muscles stronger. And it's kind of a little bit silly because it's just no way that these little muscles are going to overpower these huge muscles. It's just not going to happen. So the way to get these little muscles strong, like the teres minor, is to actually get them in the right position so then they can kind of like fire and contract properly. And then as a result of good shoulder training, they all get stronger over time. You can do a little bit of like the isolated external internal rotation work. Like there is a place for it, but people put too much emphasis on that. And if you don't fix how the shoulder's moving on the rib cage, no matter how many of these little kind of band exercises you do, they're essentially a waste of time and actually can kind of like create more impingement. I'm not a fan of them. Now, if we put in our pec major as well, so where we're here, where are you? Lats, triceps, pec. Here we go. Huge muscle. So you got the latissimus dorsi, we got the pec major, teres major, all internal rotators. And your external rotator is going to be teres minor, which is just up here. There's no way teres minor and infraspinatus are going to beat those big muscle groups. It's just not going to happen. And that's not including the two bicep muscles here, the pec minor coming through there, which are all internal rotators as well. And then if you get that tight trapezius where you get elevation, the tightness through here pulls the whole shoulder forward, and then you get shoulder blade elevation, protraction, and internal rotation. And so all this stuff in here gets really tight, and then in through this region here gets kind of compressed, and that's where you can get all the impingement type issues coming through. Okay. So we want to be able to restore this full range of movement. Let's have a look at shoulder adduction. So from overhead, adduction, just bringing your arm back down. So just follow the line of pull. You can just imagine the muscle contracts and it's pulling your arm down. Okay. So when you stretch your lats, you're also going to stretch this teres major. Sorry. So one of the best ways to stretch that is to actually hang. Get on a chin-up bar, and then just lock your elbows out and just hang. Okay, start off small, 5-10 second holds, and then build up to about a minute. And it's probably one of the best ways to strengthen and stretch your lats. Okay, if that's too strong, then a classic type of child's pose exercise is going to be good, because when you're in child's pose, that's the position essentially you're going to be in. Okay, so the lats and teres major are going to get stretched. On that note, if you get like a nice myofascial release ball in your roll up along the edge of here, you're going to hit some really yummy trigger points on both teres minor, teres major, the big infraspinatus trigger points kind of right in the middle under here. So if you kind of like draw a line up, let me bring the shoulder blade down to here. Let me fade all. So if you kind of like draw a line from here to here, go halfway, and then go from halfway down to the angle of the inferior angle of the shoulder blade, and then you divide that into 2/3. So basically 1/3, 2/3. Somewhere around in here is going to be your Teres infraspinatus trigger point. There's also a small intestine acupuncture point just there as well. They basically sit together. All right, and that's a great one because that's going to release the Teres infraspinatus that comes over through here. Just a little trick. And then let's have a look at external rotation. I mean, correction, internal rotation. Now, so the way to kind of think about this is because the tendon's on the internal side and slightly anterior, when the muscle contracts, it's going to pull this way. And so because it's on the front and inside, it's going to rotate the shoulder in that direction. So that's going to create that internal rotation because you've got this ball and socket up here, and the humerus is just going to spin, ideally, in the glenoid cavity. And so you get this nice internal rotation, which is a normal movement. But that also is facilitated by the lats and the pec major as well. So if you're doing a lot of lat work, a lot of chest work, I highly recommend you do a lot of mobility work through the shoulder, particularly in this region through here, because you'll get quite tight, and down through this region through here, because you're going to get quite tight through there as well. Okay, let's bring it back. So that is the Teres Minor and Major. Let me just put the other rotator cuff muscles in there. So we have supraspinatus. Get my mug out of the way. Connective tissue, muscles, supraspinatus left. So that's our supraspinatus. That's the most common one to get injured or rotator cuff because it gets jammed up underneath the acromion here of the shoulder blade or the scapula. Then we have infraspinatus. That one in. Infra. Probably easier to spell it properly. Infraspinatus. Amazing. So that's our infraspinatus here. And then we have subscapularis. Subscapularis. Where are you, buddy? Subscapularis, where are you? Okay, and then the subscap underneath there. So those muscles comprise typically the rotator cuff muscle. So we have supraspinatus on the top, going to the top of the humerus here on the humeral condyle through here. Then we have infraspinatus, just a little bit posterior to supraspinatus. Then we have Teres Minor, just a little bit inferior to infraspinatus. Then we have Teres Major attaching onto the front. And then we have subscapularis. Remember, the subscap sits on the shoulder blade on the anterior part of shoulder blade. So it sits between the ribs and the shoulder blade or the scapula. And that attaches to the front here. So we have two internal rotator cuff muscles. And then we have 1, 2, 3 external rotator cuff muscles here. The problem is that when you put in the pec major and the latissimus dorsi, which are huge muscles, they are both internal rotators, and you don't have any other external rotators specifically on the humerus. They rely on the trapezius group and the rhomboids to help facilitate adduction and posterior delt adduction to pull the shoulder blade back, so that it helps facilitate that rotation of the humerus into external rotation. So you have to train your kind of upper back to get a really healthy shoulder, to get that full range of movement. Okay, guys, so that is a good overview of our Teres Minor and Major, Teres Major and Teres Minor. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more, it would be amazing if you give it a like, a thumbs up, a comment, a share, all those things, really support the channel. And we're going to be moving on to the neck next. So we'll be looking most likely at the scalenes in our next video. Really, really overlooked muscle group. We're talking about all these nerves that come out of the sides of the neck. It's super important to understand how they work and what we can do about it if they're too tight. If they're too tight, you'll have either neck, shoulder, or wrist issues. Okay, until then, have a great day. Keep moving, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video.